marketing, entrepreneurship, and all things small business. You're listening to the Jurassic Marketing's Triceratops. Now, here's your host, Justin Miller.
All right, we are back to the podcast, continuing our trend of amazing guests because it's easier for us and people like it better.
It's so much easier, and it makes us sound better, look better. It's great.
I don't know if it makes us look better, but we're not on screen as much. If you're watching the video version.
That's why we look better.
And
we're not on screen as much.
If you're not watching the video version, you should be.
Yeah.
I don't even know which apps allow it and which don't, but...
I know. They say they don't, but they all do at this point.
All right.
Ready?
Without further ado, because my guest is probably rolling her eyes on the other screen here, but...
Never.
All right, we're shifting gears a little bit. Last week's episode, we talked about primarily small business marketing, but we alluded to a little bit of teamwork type stuff and systems, and it was the perfect segue into this week's episode. And our guest today, I've known for a long time. I think it goes back to her wedding before business, but...
Yeah, that's accurate. Probably accurate, yeah. Long time.
In multiple seats, in multiple companies, she has provided value to my life, and she will to yours as well. Kristen Berry, she is an EOS implementer with EOS Worldwide, amongst several other things, including being a mom. That's probably much harder than implementing EOS.
Indeed, for sure. I need EOS for my children, actually.
Oh, yeah. Mine don't have the tolerance for that. Their meeting is now. All right. She's got a track record of helping companies succeed, both at the Quad Cities Chamber of Commerce and Total Solutions, and also as an EOS implementer, which we actually used her services for here at Jurassic Marketing for a year and a half, and really got us on the track with EOS. She specializes in helping leaders regain control, get more of what they want out of their businesses through the power of EOS, which, if you aren't familiar, stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, who is our listeners. It's you. We're going to talk about some value in EOS, but first off, thanks, Kristen. Appreciate you being with us today. I should have made you drive in. You could have been...
I was just going to say, this could have been an in-person guest.
Could have been the second in-studio guest or third.
Would have been second,
I will be honest, until yesterday, I thought it was in person, so...
You could have shown up. We would have been good.
I could have shown up.
The future guests are going to randomly show up.
I know, just randomly.
They're going to fly in.
I'm here.
All right, let's first talk... Well, I guess, tell me what the heck EOS is first, and then let's talk about kind of the target size of company that it's intended for. Now, I know you can skew it both ways, but let's start there.
Yeah. So at a high level, EOS is helping business owners and leadership teams regain control of their business and also create clarity of where they're going and how they're going to get there. A lot of times that's in the owner's or the leadership team's head, but not everybody else knows what that looks like. So it's all about clarity and accountability. We work on three things we call vision, traction, and healthy. Vision is exactly what I just said. Where is a company going? Traction is the implementation piece. How are we going to get there? And healthy, one open, honest, healthy team that implements that vision. So those are the three things we work on, but really about clarity and accountability within a business.
And how do most people find their journey to this? So I know mine. Like, I had the book Traction on my shelf for, actually, I think Rocket Fuel was on it first, but for years before I gave it a second, third, fourth look. And I'm like, this sounds like something we should probably do. And I think some of your online posts coincided at the same time I was thinking that. But how do most people find their way into this cult?
This cult. The orange cults. We all wear our orange EOS colors. So surprisingly, a lot of people have the book and have put it on their bookshelf, never read it, or read it and never done anything with it. So I do hear that quite often. But a lot of times I hear it from someone else like yourself that's implemented it and saw value. So they're running their business on EOS, and they talk to one of their friends about a challenge, and they say, have you heard of EOS? And then they find me or find EOS Worldwide, or they're referred to me. So typically, I get a lot of referrals. I do mail out quite a few of the traction books. Um, Someone will say to me, I have a banker in the area that will say, "I have a client that really needs this," and then I'll follow up with a book. So the book traction is a main uh, source of people figuring out what EOS is.
Yeah, which the traction book is like incredibly tactical.
It
Like
is.
you could read it, and if you wanted to focus on every page, you could just do it.
Yes.
I would say as a business owner that's up there in probably top 5 books for me, one way early on in my career was like E-Myth, which is the concept of, replicating, simplifying, etc. And then Traction would be like the how-to. So E-Myth is, the what for a small business growth mindset, and Traction's like, okay, step by step, here's what you should be doing. And of course, then there's like, you read it and there's 80 things you're supposed to do, or you're like, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are people that successfully implement it themselves, and that's great. Um, but Traction does give you the roadmap, if you will, to implement it.
Yeah, and I reached out to you because I like shortcuts. I fully admit I have the entrepreneurial ADD,
Mm-hmm.
and let's get to the result quicker. And that being said, so what results are owners or managers or whoever reaches out typically looking for? Or what pain? So our pain when I reached out was we're hitting a wall, we're hitting a ceiling over and over and over. Clearly what we're doing now is not going to get us where we want to go. But what are the common themes you hear?
Yeah. I've heard that they're at a point of scaling and they need more systems process. I have heard they're hitting a ceiling. They're frustrated. They're stuck. There's maybe some internal challenges, lack of accountability, uh, really a variety of different things that I have heard. Sometimes people just think it's a magic wand, like, "I think I need this," and, you have to tell them, "You gotta put in the work." I'm your teacher, facilitator, and coach. I am not going to do the work. I'm going to hold you accountable, but it is work. So I don't think everyone always knows exactly what they want out of it other than someone told them they need it or they need it.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, there are people that love building systems for system's sake. I don't gotta kind of work the system too once it's built.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
I kind of know where you're going in order to get there, huh? And we did provide a lot of clarity around that as well. So that was one of the values to me. Um, and we had a small team. Like we were on kind of the bottom end, I think, of what Traction is speaking to. But again, we were trying to get there quickly. I think your personal story of how you got into this world's interesting because you didn't like wake up one day and read Traction and say that's what I want to do.
Nope,
So
nope.
could you share your journey?
Yeah, yeah. So prior to my career at Total Solutions, I was the chief strategy officer at the Quad Cities Chamber, and we were going through a leadership change. And our president CEO moved here that we had just hired, and he handed me the book Traction. And I distinctly remember thinking, "Oh, great, another book, another consultant." Like we had used 50 of them in my time there, and I almost boycotted reading the book, to be honest, and, read it, and our visionary or our CEO had said, "We're gonna implement EOS in our business," and I said, "Okay, we're gonna do it," and immediately realized how transformational it could be for the business, and, we implemented it at the Quad Cities Chamber. I left there after a 16-year career there and came to Total Solutions, brought EOS with, and about, I would say, 2.5 years ago, my implementer that I used based out of Des Moines had said, "Have you ever thought about becoming an implementer yourself?" And I have a great career, Total Solutions, a business I love. Was not looking for a change, but after much thought and reflection and discussion with our owner, decided this is a passion and something I can do to help other businesses, which is very much aligned with my passion. And jumped right in. So I've been doing this for 2 years in addition to leading Total Solutions, and it's been really fun.
It's nothing like multiple jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
Just because I need more to do, right? I
Yes,
mean,
we all do. We all do.
Mhm.
Speaking of more to do with an end result in mind. All right, let's get a little bit tactical if you're game for it.
yeah,
I won't go like super deep because it's all in the book Traction. But let's talk about like meeting rhythm, if you will. I think this is an interesting one to start with because a lot of small business owners, and we had bits and pieces of this from like 8 different places implemented. So we came in with some of this, but without a cohesive system. So let's talk through the recommended rhythm of communication and meeting. And already by saying that, I know the ADD entrepreneurs, and I say this with love, are like, what? Meetings? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all about effective meetings, right? Not just meeting to meet. So I think one of the magic pieces behind EOS is that we're living in a 90-day world all the time. So it's easy to think, I want my company to be here by the end of this year, but that's a long time away. So every quarter we plan for the quarter, reflect on the last quarter, but we meet weekly in a very structured agenda, same time, same place every week, same agenda. And we are working towards that quarterly plan that we set. So very structured in weekly meetings, quarterly planning sessions, annual planning sessions, but we're always thinking 90 days at a time, which makes it more realistic, more achievable, um, and keeps us on track. If we have one bad quarter, we can still achieve the end result. We just do a reset.
yeah, and as a small business owner, I feel I can see 90 days out. Now a year might as well be infinity sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
A lot can change in a year.
yeah, oh, certainly.
Yeah, yeah. We've seen it, right? I mean, yeah, it's easier to do a reset. I've seen a lot where people just think, "Oh, that's never going to happen." And if you do a reset, it's like, okay, it didn't happen last quarter, it didn't happen in the last 90 days, but still can happen. So let's reset and replan, and very possible to still achieve your goal and not give up.
Yeah, I guess let's talk about the opposite side of that. As an optimist, as a business owner, most of us are optimists. Otherwise, you're just a glutton for punishment. Um, but we see this and we start to see that future, and we want to move fast. And I'm curious if you have an example, or if you've seen it in other companies you've helped serve, where I don't know, you almost get drunk on the concept of moving forward and shifting
Mhm.
the mountains.
Yeah, yeah. Typically, that's led by the visionary, people like you, Justin. So,
Hell yeah,
um,
we're the what is it? The arsonist and the firefighter all in one.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, visionaries are full of ideas, and it's easy to just like want to go do. But what happens when you try to move too fast is you burn out your team, you create internal frustration, overwhelming them. So, uh, we we want to have stretch goals and we want to try to achieve something big, but we also want to be realistic about what are the most important things we can get done in a quarter. Not We don't always want to push the limits on trying to do it all in a quarter. So I've seen clients that are really good at prioritizing. I've also seen clients who try to do 15 things and it's not possible, and their team gets frustrated and it creates problems. So you really have to, and it's hard for me because my job is not to make those decisions. I can advise and coach, but ultimately the leadership team needs to decide what is realistic. And again, usually it's the visionary that wants to get it all done. And that's why we have 4 quarters, 52 chances in a year and 4 quarters, and we don't need to do it all at once.
Yes, but if we could.
Yes. Yeah.
But if it's
Yeah,
possible,
exactly.
could you help me do it in a really fast window?
Yes, if you could come
Yes.
in 120 hours a week, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Sounds like sometimes you might play a little bit of the therapist role, like talking people off the ledge, up the ledge, down the ledge, just keeping them kind of sane.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say there are a lot of emotions involved in this process, in that we really encourage open and honest. And that open and honest is sometimes hard to hear. And people are sometimes scared to say it, but that's how we get further faster. So, yeah, there's a little bit of an element of challenging people to say what they're thinking, and also facilitating when those emotions come out. Um, I am not a trained therapist, but I do my best in those moments. Maybe my parenthood helps me get there, but yeah, it does get interesting at times.
Look, this was a key part of the unspoken value of hiring an outsider to facilitate these meetings.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand it's not the core role, it's not the core deliverable, but it is nice to have someone that is not tied to the outcome of
Yeah,
meeting.
the clarity from that outside perspective can really be valuable.
Well, and if you're a small business, sometimes it's difficult for me to get honest feedback when it's critical. Like they want to say yes and no. I want you to push back and
Yeah.
make me
Right.
justify what I'm saying.
Right.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce maybe the concept of rocks? I think that's another one of these major things that people may have heard the term before, but it's a major part of EOS. And I got too many of them this quarter. So
Also a key visionary trait to try to take too much on.
no, not try. They will get done too.
They will get done.
It's
Your
going to take a
team
lot of this Starbucks,
See?
here, but it will get done.
Your team has a good track record of getting the rocks done, so I'm confident in that. So rocks are 90-day priorities, the most important things that the team needs to get done. There's company rocks, there's team rocks, and there's individual rocks in that level of priority. But that's part of the 90-day planning process. What has to happen this quarter towards achieving our 1-year plan and our 10-year target? And so we're not just setting the tactical things that need to get done. It's what are the big things that we need to move the needle on? And those need to be the priority. And when they can't be, we need to discuss what needs to happen to make those, to shift, to make those the priority. And that's why those weekly meetings are important, because we report every week, is that priority on track or off track? And you have to be honest. If you haven't touched it in the week, it's probably off track. So 13 chances to get that rock done over a quarter and be able to say done at the end of the quarter.
And that's a huge shift for us behind the scenes, and you saw that evolve here. But those were typically the things that just wouldn't get done before. It's not that we didn't know they needed to get done, but there wasn't enough attention and focus on them, and deliberate scheduling of work for them, and that was huge. And I guess I should point out that if someone's just being exposed to these topics, they all sound simple.
I was going to say that from knowing you and watching you talk about this with your business, like I want to read the book now, but it seems super simple. And I realize that it is probably way more complex and intricate than
it is super simple. It is a super simple process. It's the accountability and focus it takes to actually follow through. I mean, it's easy. Part of my job is to hold people accountable. It'd be easy to say, you know what? A client needs me this day. We can't do our quarterly planning. We're going to push it out. And the next thing you know, it's pushed out 4 weeks and you don't have priorities, or we're not going to do our L10 this week, our weekly meeting, because I'm busy. But the process itself is simple if you follow the plan. You can't do bits and pieces of it. You got to follow the whole process.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky, is all of them together is where the value is. So
Right.
This is why it's appealing, I think, when people read Traction, because they nod their head while they're reading the book. Like, yeah, I can do that. That makes sense. I can do that. That can make sense. And then you get to the end and you're like, that was a lot of things.
Mhm.
They're divided out into 6 chunks in the EOS world, but there's a lot of sub-bullets in there.
Right. Yep. There are a lot of people that just think I'm going to have weekly L10s and rocks, but the number of times when I've heard people, I have some friends and clients that self-implemented, and when they say, "What's an accountability chart?" They, because they're running on L10s and they have rocks, but they don't have the other pieces of the puzzle.
Okay, so you mentioned the piece, and I was already going to ask you about it. So let's introduce accountability chart, because it's another one that seems stupid simple. It just sounds like org chart at the end of the day. You can tell the differences, but it was a key clarity piece for us. So as a small growing company, there was a lot of fuzziness around who does what, and it's still evolving, by the way. We are not perfect, and I continue to change this chart. But go ahead and introduce that concept in EOS terminology.
Right. Yeah. So the accountability chart is a lot like an org chart, but it has a key piece that a lot of organizations lose sight of, and that's who's accountable for what. What are the key elements of each role within your organization? And when we introduce this exercise, the hardest part for businesses is we ask them, pretend like this business doesn't exist, or you're building this business from the ground up. How would you structure it? Given number of clients you have, the amount of revenue, what would you structure this like? A lot of times we build the org chart based on who's there now instead of what do we need to be successful. And so we encourage them to build it for what do you need to be successful and what are the roles, the key components of that job. And then let's put people in seats based on their ability to perform and how they align with your culture. And that is very difficult. That's where the emotions come out, and it's very difficult, but it allows you to get further faster. I'd also say I could I bet if we polled businesses and asked them the last time they updated their job descriptions, it was probably years. So do your team members truly know what's expected of them and who does what? Probably not. And that's where we look at the accountability chart to be that tool of everyone's abundantly clear of what, when they wake up and come to work every day, what is expected of them through the accountability chart. And we update that regularly. Things change. If someone leaves their role, we look back, what do we need? What does the role look like when we replace it?
Yeah. So our evolution was first getting that chart and defining, the expected outcomes. And then further refining, recently it was, you know what? There's too many expected outcomes. That's not realistic. So narrowing those down to actual roles that can be achieved was our second step of that evolution. And it does continue to change. It's something we constantly, we try to change it every month. But
maybe every quarter. Every quarter.
You start scaring everyone in the team. You start changing.
Too much change, yeah.
All right. Anything I should have asked you that I didn't before we jump into lightning round here?
No, I don't think so. I think it's all in the book Traction. I mean, there's no magic to the system itself. It's actually implementing it. So read the book Traction. If you want a copy, I can happily send someone a copy.
I mean, this is the entrepreneur's disease, though. We want the magic bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it quick.
Give me the shortcut.
Do it fast, make it quick, or do it for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Neither of those happened. I guess there's a related thing, though, is when do people implementing this start to see some traction and outcome? So I know for us what it was, but typically where in that journey do they finally start getting return for investment of time, effort, whatever the case may be?
In my experience, about a year in is when you really start seeing things flow. The journey to implement and be 100% is usually about 2 years. But I really start seeing things clicking in that 9 to 12 month range.
There we go.
Who has patience for that?
I was going to say we scared off.
Wow, you just scared everybody off. I mean, I'm thinking
Wow.
wow.
You got to put in the work.
No, I mean, it makes sense, but I can see where someone would be like, what do you mean 2 years? What do you mean 9 months?
The number of people that walk out of the first session, and Justin can probably speak to this, and think, wow, that's a lot, but we still have a lot to do. And it's like, 1 8-hour session is just the start of it.
Yeah, I am always amazed, both directions with a full day of structure. Sometimes I walk in and I don't know how we're going to fill the day, and yet it's all filled with value producing stuff, regardless of what we started the day with. Like we had one recently. Oh, this is going to be an easy one now.
I had a client last week who had their first actual quarterly, and we have 3 hours in a quarterly for issue solving time, solving problems, opportunities. And they're like, no way. Well, we could have used 4 or 5 hours for issue solving time. So we filled the time for sure.
Yeah. And then you have the opposite. If you do come in with a metric ton of issues, like, there's no way we're going to get them solved. But I think we're batting 100 still for clearing everything we come in with, because a lot of them end up being related and grouped. And there's like a core issue hidden in there that we haven't addressed. So, all right, before we get too tactical, since we've gone over on time, we're going to lightning round. We still don't have the sound effect. All right. Best business book you recommend? I think
obviously Traction, because it has changed my life, and I've seen it change business owners. So Traction for sure.
2 weeks in a row.
True. 2 weeks in a row.
The next one's Traction. We're just going to switch this, and Kristen's going to be host.
That's right.
All right. Tool you can't live without.
I am a list maker, and I'm extremely organized. So OneNote. I live by OneNote. Everything in my business world is in OneNote.
Entrepreneurial equivalent is notes on iPhone.
That's right.
Yes. That's my personal life is in notes on iPhone, but OneNote is my favorite.
All right. And favorite quote, motto, or saying?
I would say my second favorite book is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And quote out of there, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice and discipline.
No way you had that memorized.
She lives by that.
She's got it on a poster. I swear.
She did look right off camera. I know. But that's good. She's prepared.
Yeah.
She did her prep work and she knew you were going to ask her.
That's like when you see us looking at it.
I know. That's like, look at these notes here.
They missed that on the audio version. They got
It's
no
true.
idea.
That's why you got to watch the video.
That's right. That's right. All right. Kristen, if I guess I'll back up. I was going to say if people want to contact you, how they do that. But how can you help people? And then if they want to reach out, what's the best way to do that?
Yep. Even if you're considering EOS or want to know more about EOS, it's just a passion of mine, whether you hire an implementer or not. Always willing to talk, have a coffee, explore more, learn more about your business. I love connecting businesses to resources, whether it's EOS or not. The best way to reach me, my website, eosworldwide.com/Kristen-Berry. You could always go to eosworldwide.com and find a directory of implementers. We're all willing to help businesses explore EOS.
And Kristen likes warm climates. So if you're in a warm climate with your meeting.
Yeah. The first question I want to ask is, where are you going to hold your annual session? If the answer is Florida, I'm in.
You're going to get tired of Florida now. You're going to get like 3 of them.
Yeah.
Better have a second.
Yeah. Arizona.
Florida and Seattle.
Well, I mean.
All right. Before we get too far off topic. All right, Kristen, thank you so much for being on here. When we come back next week, we got more guests.
We do. We're going to go for 3 in a row for favorite book, you think?
I don't know.
Would that be something? That would be pretty good.
Yeah,
I need to call.
I think someone else might have mentioned it. We need to go back through them because I don't think that's the second time Traction was mentioned.
I think you're right. I think someone else has mentioned it. And at the time I was like, well, that's an interesting title.
We're going to add it to the set. We'll put it back.
Oh, see, there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
All right.
Subscribe, share, like. We need people
we need
sharing
help.
and listening.
Yeah,
we need to get some traction.
That's
with
right.
The podcast.
We need traction.
So,
Yeah.
All right. Tune in next week. We appreciate you being here. Have a good week as always.
Thanks for listening to the Triceratops podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave your comments. For more information on how Jurassic Marketing Direct Mail can help grow your business, visit JurassicMarketing.com.